The ACA has become part of the basic plumbing of the United States healthcare system, and it undergirds a lot of the payment systems we've got in place. It underwrites a lot of the insurance for millions of people, and it provides important protections for all the rest of the Americans who get their insurance through their employers.
Hypothetically, if the Supreme Court were to repeal the ACA in full, who would take a hit? Here's a look at some of the numbers. As many as 133 million people could lose protections for a pre-existing condition. Roughly 11 million Americans covered through the ACA exchanges could lose their insurance. About 12 million adults covered through state-based Medicaid expansion could also lose coverage. And roughly 2 million young adults under 26 on their parents' insurance could be kicked off the plan.
It's going to put immense pressure on Congress to come up with some kind of patch. But one thing we know about Congress when it comes to healthcare is that it can be really hard to reach any consensus. And I don't think anyone has a roadmap for figuring out how to cope with the fallout.
The common kind of phrase is like, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. But in these kind of situations, there really is no preparing for the worst because there's like nothing I can do.
Eva is in her final year at the University of Central Florida. She's an unpaid intern for Congresswoman Anna Eskamani and is studying political science. Eva was on and off of antidepressants for about 4 years. She said her mood was like a roller coaster, where one day she would feel impulsive with a hard time keeping focus, while the next she'd feel depressed and indifferent. When Eva got to college, she was diagnosed with bipolar II disorder.
But it's kind of hard to live your life like that because you end up kind of feeling like you have to rush to do everything. You know, I used to feel like when I was stable, but before I was like chronically stable, right, that every day that I felt normal, I had to just accomplish everything because I don't know what the next day would hold.
The 21-year-old is planning to stay on her stepdad's insurance until she gets a job with benefits, which may not be until after she finishes grad school in a couple of years. Her insurance is on the line with the ACA.
So I would basically just have no insurance.
The historic action I'm taking today includes the first ever executive order to affirm it is the official policy of the United States government to protect patients with pre-existing conditions. So we're making that official.
President Trump did sign an executive order supporting pre-existing condition protections, but Professor Bagley called the order a glorified press release with no legal effect, saying it wouldn't change any potential outcome of the SCOTUS case.
It's not within my reach right now to afford to purchase private health insurance. The budget, the way that it is right now, I'm barely covering the expenses that we have, just our basic living expenses.
Nika was unable to continue working in social work due to the pandemic. Then the single mom of two found an opportunity to start a new business, and she took it.
For those of us who are kind of in the gap, who aren't able to afford health insurance yet, but we are making some money and can't meet the very low income requirements that Medicaid is at right now.
Professor Bagley says that the court will likely rule on the pending ACA case sometime between April and June. Missouri's Medicaid expansion is slated to go into effect in July.
The states that have chosen to expand the Medicaid programs, including the states that have chosen to do so by referenda, if the Affordable Care Act was to go away, all those votes would be meaningless. There'd be no Medicaid program to expand because there would be no money available to expand it. It's that simple.
We're going to have a health care plan that's going to be second to none.
You know, I've been talking about a plan with heart.
We're going to come up with a health care plan.
We're going to be introducing a tremendous health care plan sometime.
Trump has repeatedly promised an alternative health care plan to the ACA, even tweeting it would be replaced with something better and cheaper if the Supreme Court strikes it down.
We're cutting health care.
But when asked about a comprehensive plan during the first presidential debate, he didn't provide one, and instead deflected back to the current law.
The problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive, premiums are too high, and it doesn't work. So we do want to get rid of it.
But despite all of Trump's attacks, public opinion actually tips in favor of the ACA. In a poll conducted this summer, 53% of voters said they would not want to see the Supreme Court overturn the law, compared to 38% who said they would. And support for Obamacare hit an all-time high in a September poll, with 62% of voters favoring it, up from 43% when the poll was first conducted in 2013.
Today's the fourth and final day of confirmation hearings for President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing from character witnesses today. On October 22nd, the committee will vote, likely confirming Judge Barrett as the fifth female Supreme Court justice. NBC News correspondent Heidi Prisbilla joins us now from Washington, D.C. Heidi, it's great to see you outside and not in the rain that you were dealing with when we spoke to you earlier this week. We know that Judge Barrett is not at today's hearing, but Democrats are still questioning her nomination process. What's going on inside that hearing today?
Right. If you listen to Republicans, Allison, everything about this is normal. There's lots of examples of election year Supreme Court appointments. But if you listen to Democrats, there is absolutely nothing about this that is normal, beginning with the fact that this judge's name was revealed before her predecessor, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, was even buried, that the event was so rushed to announce her appointment that it became itself a super spreader event amid a pandemic, that this is happening not weeks or months before an election, but days before an election that the president who is naming her is saying could be disputed, and that president says he wants her there in the event that the court may need to decide the outcome of his own election, and that in that questioning, she would not recuse herself, Allison. And finally, they say it is hypocritical, given that Republicans are the ones who made up the most recent precedent in blocking President Obama's confirmation, his appointee, Merrick Garland. Take a listen to what they had to say today.
And we are breaking the rules of the Senate, breaking the rules of this committee. We are defying our own tradition, common sense, and the mutual respect which led to votes of 98-0 and 96-3. I don't know how we get this train back on the track, but this nomination at this moment in time is not usual, not normal, and it's beneath the dignity of this committee. We should have played by the rules, and the rules would have told us to wait, as Senator McConnell told us 4 years ago, until after the presidential election. When we discarded the McConnell rule, it was clear that all bets were off. We are going for this nominee at any price, at any cost, and one of them is the integrity of this committee.
So, Allison, another notable remark was by Senator Blumenthal, who said, quote, history will haunt this raw exercise of political power. But Republicans say we have the votes, fair is fair.
Heidi, Judiciary Committee Chair Lindsey Graham kicked off today's hearing with this strong defense of Judge Barrett.
If anybody in America is ready to go to the Supreme Court, it's Amy Barrett. If anybody in America has done the homework to be ready for this moment, it is Judge Barrett. If anybody in America has the character and the disposition to handle the job, it is her, in my view.
Heidi, next week's confirmation vote is less than 2 weeks before Election Day. Talk to us about the timing and when we could see a full vote potentially in the Senate.
So there will be a week between today and when the committee officially marks up this nomination. That means advances it to the full Senate. And we are expecting, although there may be some potential procedural tactics to delay the vote on the Senate floor by Democrats, they cannot stop the vote. And we're expecting it to take place within days of the election. So Democrats say they're strategizing about it. But you also saw a lot of resignation in that hearing today by Democrats. Senator Cory Gardner saying the goose is already cooked. And not a lot of indication from Republicans that they were going to be open to any of the appeals by Democrats, particularly Senator Blumenthal saying, here's a prime example of why we need to delay these hearings. It was so rushed that even as of last night, there were new revelations about information that was left off the candidate's questionnaire that went to the Senate about additional speeches that she's gave, that we really don't have a full accounting of her activities, her extracurricular activities that may be associated with activist groups at the University of Notre Dame, but none of that really making an impact on Republicans who control all of the levers here, and therefore Democrats making clear that they can't do anything about it, so they're going to use it as a stage to make their closing arguments in the election to the American people, Allison.